Welcome to Infertility and Me podcast, a show that amplifies diverse stories about the struggles of infertility and fertility in a safe space. Our goal is to normalize fertility stories that validate, give hope, and create a community where no one is left silently suffering. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Infertility and Me podcast. I'm your host, Monique Farouk. Thank you for listening and or following, downloading on your preferred platform and or YouTube. You guys. So we have our friend Kristin Dillensnyder. She has unexplained infertility, and after 4 unsuccessful IUI'S, she and her husband knew they needed more help and went to a reproductive endocrinologist. And not only did Kristen suffer from unexplained infertility, but she was of advanced maternal age and as well as some male factor issues too. And after 3 rounds of IUI, one resulting in the birth of her daughter, the big fat positive of her daughter, and then the birth thereafter. One ended in loss, and then her very first IVF cycle, it ended with no successful embryo. But she had done other treatments before that, IUI'S and such, multiple rounds of those before going into IVF. But because of her age, she did not want to waste time and they moved very quickly through IVF. They tried for a sibling, and that resulted in a miscarriage at the gestation of 10 weeks. And so at that point, her and her husband just decided, look, we're gonna stop for now. Maybe we'll revisit it, maybe we won't. And trying for a sibling. And so Kristen tells us all about that in today's episode. And you don't want to miss it because Kristen reminds us of some very powerful things that we can do to stay healing while going through fertility struggles and moving through our fears and our anxiety. So you don't want to miss that. And also, we talk about why she went into coaching women and men along their paths to parenthood. And so you'll want to stick around for that as well. And so we'll be back in just a second, you guys, with Kristen. We're back, you guys, with our girl, Kristen. Kristen, thank you so much, my dear, for coming on the show and speaking to us today about your story to momhood, that long, arduous thing called infertility and all that ish that goes along with that. So I appreciate you for taking time out of your week, your day to come on and talk to us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here to talk with you and share my story and how infertility impacted me.
Yes. So, Kristen and I have been talking for probably at least a year and a half now on Instagram, just engaging with can't talk this evening, engaging with one another and, and supporting one another's work within the community. So, you guys make sure you follow Kristen. I'll have her information in the show details, as I mentioned in the intro. So, we're just going to start from the beginning. Kristen, you know how this thing goes. So, how did you and hubby meet? How did that happen?
Well, I'm really happy to share that I am another one of your guests who met her husband on Tinder.
Number two. That's two. All you tender lovers out there, email me. Come on the show. Let's talk about it. I love it.
Yeah, so it does work. It can work out. And we
hmm
actually even invited, like I sent an email to Tinder when we got married and I invited them to the wedding to say like, hey, like, thanks for being the ones who introduced us.
That is cool. Very cool. I like it. I like it. So, how long did you guys date before you took the plunge and jumped the bridge?
Not long. It was round two for both of us. So, and we were older, advanced maternal age in the infertility world. But we met, and about he's in the military, and when we met, we knew it was an instant connection. And then he was told he was after like 5 months of dating, he was told that he was going to be moving, and so we knew that it was really serious at that point. So we got married a year after we met.
Okay. Well, and look, when you know, you know. And when we get to a certain age, we don't have time to play games and all that jazz. We're just going to go ahead and get married and seal the deal, right?
Hmm.
So, did your husband have children prior to you guys getting married? Or,
Yes, he
okay.
has a son, so I'm a bonus mom, and when we got together again because of our age, it was like, let's do this right now. And as soon as we got married, the next appointment I made was with my OBGYN to say, okay, what do I have to worry about because I'm 35? Like, I know that you've heard this story. I know that there's something that's going to make it harder. Let's check everything. And so that was the start of our infertility. And we started right away with IUIs and Clomid, the gateway drug for infertility.
And how long was this after you got married? I don't think I heard you say
Oh,
the timeline.
it was pretty much right away. We got
Hmm.
married in February and we started doing um, our first IUI, I think, was in like April.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it works when you set your intentions for something. It kind of like it just gives you more of a clearer path on what's next, And I know you're a planner and you like to have things planned out and such, right? So, okay, wow. So it was quite recent after getting married, but that's not really that unusual. I don't think at this day and age, with us getting married a little older, I don't think that's unusual, not in my opinion, at least. But okay, so you guys go ahead. And what happens next? Like, did you go get your HSG first and do all the testing? Did they even do that first? Some doctors don't. So, how did that all transpire?
Yeah, so I love my OBGYN that I had found because we just moved and I really didn't know anybody. I think I met my doctor before I met some friends in the area. And they did the blue dye test like right away. They were like, that's the first thing we're going to do. And we tested my husband and we were just pretty much told, like, look, it's going to be harder for you. IUI is going to speed it up. And we were very set, like, let's do this. Let's not waste any time. Um, and so we just jumped right in with the IUIs and we did 4 of them and they didn't work. So, as you know, and as most women who are listening who've gone through it, like every month it just gets a little bit harder when it doesn't work because you've built up your hope again. You're like, no, it can still work. It can still work. And then it doesn't. And so my doctor was like, we can keep doing this, or you can go to a specialist. And again, at that point, it was like, do it, bring it. I've wanted the baby for years. Like, where do I go? So I actually ended up going to an infertility clinic that was not in town. Like, I didn't go to the local clinic. I did some research and decided to go to one that was an hour and a half to almost 2 hours away because of the reputation that that clinic and those doctors had. So I am a big advocate for not necessarily going to the closest clinic, but finding the one that's the right fit for you, even if that means traveling.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of other people in the community, like recently, do the same thing, and some of them are actually like flying out of state. I don't know if you've seen some of that too with other people in the community. So I think that's going to be more prevalent when people are like really just trying to advocate for themselves, like you said, and then finding their tribe within that fertility clinic that they're going to spend a lot of time at potentially. So I love that you guys did that, and you did it before it became trendy to do, right?
Yeah, I did it before most infertility
Yeah.
doctors. I did it before most infertility doctors even had a social media account. This day and age, it's so wonderful that there are clinics and doctors themselves that have accounts to put out information and awareness. And so, yeah, I was doing it before it was a little bit more trendy or accessible. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful that the landscape has changed to make it easier for other people to find the right doctor. Now I think people know that it's okay to want something more from your doctor other than them just having the degree. It's about the relationship and the interaction that you have, and that you can find that. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's the closest.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I don't have anything to add to that. You said it all. So,
Listening to this, I want you to know that there will be a point in time where these dates are not as prevalent and important to you because you've actually been able to move forward and create a life that has a lot more than just the infertility or the IVF journey you're going through. And some of the
mhm,
stuff does get fuzzy. And it's a
mhm,
wonderful thing because it's not as big of a hill because it's now behind me. I
yeah.
know that if you're going forward and you're still climbing up that hill, those dates all seem so prevalent. But when you're on the other side, they get a little fuzzy in the rearview mirror. So Ultimately, we moved really quickly. We did the egg retrieval. Like 2 months later, we did a fresh transfer. It did not work. We had one embryo left over from that, but decided to do another egg retrieval. Two sisters and two brothers, and I wanted a big family. Maybe not five, but I wanted a big
Right.
family. So we did another round so that we could try and have multiples. And that second round, we did the egg retrieval in like October, September, and then we did the transfer in October. And November, we were pregnant. So the second round
Wow.
worked,
Wow.
which was
Wow.
wonderful.
Yeah. So I want to backtrack just for a second
Hmm.
to the cycle that resulted in the miscarriage.
Hmm.
And so that was the first time you had ever gotten a big fat positive in your entire life, right at that point.
Actually, not. So the order of
Okay.
how it worked was round one did not work. It was a big fat negative. Round two worked and is my IVF miracle daughter. Round three was our sibling cycle, our effort to try and have a sibling for our daughter. And that is what ended up in the miscarriage. So it actually was not my first big fat positive. It was my second, but
Okay.
it was, yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
Whether it's your first or your eighth or second or
It
whatever,
doesn't matter.
it was really hard. And we had proactively said that we would do one more round of an egg retrieval, and however many embryos we got out of that, however many transfers it took, we would sort of exhaust that. That would help us decide our journey on how far we would go, because we were paying out of pocket, and 3 rounds out of pocket is pretty significant. So that last round, it's interesting, that last round ended up with the most eggs and the most embryos. So I was the oldest, and it was my third round, but it only ended up with one genetically good embryo, and that was the one that we had that miscarried.
Wow. Wow. So,
So I experienced it all the
yeah.
outcomes.
And I'm just sitting here thinking the devastation of miscarriage and losses, period. And then to how far along were you when you miscarried? Let me ask that first.
I was 10 weeks.
Okay, so you were almost right at that second trimester line. I mean, goodness, if we're not holding on to our panties that whole first trimester, I don't know what other time in life you're holding on to them besides like 2 week wait period. Okay,
Hmm.
so yeah, and then that was the sibling. Oh man,
Yeah, and so
I
it
didn't
was
know that about your story. Wow.
just the loss. It was also the loss of the story in my mind that I would have two girls.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it was very
It was
big and
everything.
heavy, and something I had to process and grieve for a while and work through.
Yeah. And so how did you work through it? What were the steps or maybe a couple of steps that were very pivotal for your healing and moving forward in your grief?
Good question. I think one of them was to say that it's okay, that I didn't cause it. I didn't do anything wrong. I also didn't miss anything. I always had this feeling like, what more could I be doing? What am I what am I missing, right? Like the Google rabbit hole. Have you done that? Yeah, where it's like, what else?
More times than we care to tell, right? Really, we really don't want to be honest about how many times we've done it and what time of the hour it was when we did it, right? Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I did a lot of research during all of it, and not to say that I was as educated as our doctors, but I felt very well versed and was just always looking for what more is out there, what else could I be doing. And so when it didn't work, when we had a genetically positive, like good tested embryo, and it didn't work, it was like, what did I do wrong and what did I miss? So I had to first accept that it's okay to be upset about this, that I didn't do anything wrong, I didn't miss anything, and that there's actually so much right now to be grateful for. And the other thing that helped me was, instead of having the thought of, this is not what I thought my life would look like, which ultimately, if you think like that, it makes you feel really sad and demotivated. And that's not a way that I wanted to live my life. That doesn't help me make good choices and improve the quality of my life. Instead, I decided to believe that my family looks different, but that the big family I'd always had and pictured in my mind will look different, but I will still have a big family. I just I believe that I will have this big family one day. I just don't, it's just not with my children.
the infertility with as many hairs still left on your head as you could, right? And so, your pregnancy, was it in is it enjoyable pregnancy? Did you have struggles? For instance, I had bleeding scares, a couple of them before giving birth. Did you have any instances like that during your pregnancy, where it's like those feelings you thought you had healed from infertility were creeping back up, those anxieties and such?
I I did have bleeding in the first trimester. At about like 6.5 weeks, I was on a trip with my friends and was so excited to finally be pregnant. It was my first, like I said, it was my first pregnancy, and I was on vacation with them, and I had it bleeding and spotting. And my first reaction, of course, is, "Oh gosh, this is over." You know, sometimes we have the thought of, I knew it was too good to be true. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, that kind of stuff. I hear that a lot with my clients. And I also, luckily, knew that there was nothing I could do about it. And so I made the decision right there that it is what it is. There was nothing I did to cause it if it was something wrong, and there was nothing I could do to prevent it if something was going wrong. And so I actually decided to just enjoy my vacation, to say, I'm tabling this until Monday. Like when I get back in town on Monday, and I reached out to my doctors and I had an ultrasound appointment on Monday, and I just knew that there was nothing else I could do. I could let it ruin my weekend with my best friends who I hadn't seen, or I could enjoy my time and make the most of it and deal with what I had to deal when I had the information, because it was such a period of unknown. So there was no need to rush finding out at that moment. Now, luckily, it all worked out. So I didn't have further bleeding. I didn't have like an embarrassing experience where, I was in public and something happened. So I'm very grateful for that. But I did have the just calmness and sense of, there's nothing I can do right now. Um, all I can do is wait. And I just kept waiting. And luckily, it all worked out. But beyond that point, pregnancy was amazing. I loved it. I didn't have to suck in my tummy for the first time in my life. That bump was out. I wore the tightest clothing ever. I loved it. I cherished every moment, including swollen ankles and acid reflux. It was everything I had hoped for. People move the goal line. That's what I talk about with my clients. Like,
Hmm.
we move the
Hmm.
goal line. We say, "Oh, I'll relax. I'll exhale when like at the first ultrasound, or when I hear a heartbeat, or at the first trimester, or 20 weeks." They keep pushing back and moving the goal line. And so I decided right early then that it was like, I'm pregnant right now. I'm celebrating every moment because I don't know when it might go away. And luckily it didn't, at least that round.
Yeah. It's funny how we do that with everything in life. It's always the win. When this happens, I'll be happy. I'll be full of joy, and I'll be able to live my best life and all those things. And then in doing that, it becomes toxic, I think, in my opinion, in my own personal experience, because then if we're always thinking about the win, I'll be happy and joyful and all these things. And then when something happens like infertility or fertility struggles in general and loss, we don't have the tools that we need to be able to work through it. And we just don't know how to work through it because we spend all this time preparing for the next thing that could happen that could bring that joy and fill that void. And it's really all consuming, and it's so important that we have tools beforehand in case something happens that's uncontrollable. Wow. In your path to healing, after you give birth to your daughter, she's home now, you're again relishing in all the moments, right? But there was still some, I'm sure, emotional things to work through that maybe you hadn't dealt with during your fertility IVF cycles and such. And so, what was the point in time when you knew or you realized that there was still some work to do, even after the birth of your beautiful daughter?
That's a good question. The first 6 weeks is really hard for anybody who has their baby. And luckily,
Hmm.
I had a friend who told me and said, I'm the friend for you, that when this is hard and when you don't love it and when this is more than you think you can handle, that I've been there. I know about this, and I'm the person you can call to like vent about it. And that was really helpful for me. And that, I think, was the moment for me to recognize that I wanted to be that person for women going through infertility. And so at that point, to be able to help women going through infertility was when I knew I needed to learn as much as I could and work as much as I could on myself to have me be like my first client. And so I definitely like, I think you're aware that I have a 2-week weight challenge. It was the first thing I created, and I did it for my sibling cycle 2-week weight. Because that to me is one of the hardest moments going through infertility because it's like I just went to the Gamecock NCAA basketball championship parade for the Gamecocks. Hooray. Transfer is like the Final Four. You've done all the prep, you've won all the games to get to that point, and this is where the game is called. And it's a matter of seconds, and it's a matter of so many things are out of their control even, right? Like one of their players could have gotten COVID, or their coach, like one of them could have gotten injured and their plays could not have worked out. Like there's so many things that could happen, and it's the final point. And that's what the transfer feels like, and then it's all out of your control.
And it almost feels like a jail sentence. Sometimes when I think about it, I get anxiety, like trying to think about possibly doing another cycle for a sibling. And I'm like, do I even want to sit in jail for 2 weeks waiting for something to happen? And, because it's like, I always equate it to like, besides the jail analogy, it's like, it's like I'm in limbo. Like you're waiting for that guy or that gal or whoever, whatever your sexual orientation is. You're waiting for them to call you. You've had your first couple of dates. You seem to enjoy yourself. They seem to enjoy themselves, but yet they haven't called you, right? And we're sitting around waiting for this phone call, okay, that determines everything from here on forward in our future. And I think that we just have an issue as humans, period, anybody, with giving up that control, and saying, okay, I'm just going to relax. It doesn't happen. It's very small, minute percentage of people who have it together that good. They must have been in therapy for like 10 years before.
Well, I'd like to think that they've had access to tools too from coaching, but I'm clearly biased about that. But I made the 2-week weight challenge because of that, because of the experience of having 6 other 2-week weights that I'd been through because of the IUI'S and then all the IVF rounds. And that was my 7th one. And it was like, there's got to be a better way. And so I used the tools, and I put the tools in this 2-week weight challenge, which is a free resource for anybody, to help other women, because I have the natural ability to be more optimistic and to be more positive that not everybody has. And so I
Very
wanted to
select
share
few.
some of the
Yeah.
tools that I use and leaned on that really helps me get through that period, so that you don't feel like you're in jail, so that you don't feel like you're holding your breath or your shoulders are up to here. You can now relax might not be the word, but maybe it's a little bit more about being neutral or being more calm than, you know, pressure filled and anxious. And what I see is that everybody is awesome, right? You start the transfer and you're like, this is gonna work. This is amazing. I've been waiting for this. Woohoo. And then
Yep.
like day 4, you're like, I don't know. Do my boobs hurt? I don't know. Something didn't smell weird, or like I felt a cramp. What was that? And that's when people sort of, their hope diminishes. And so the 2-week weight challenge is daily content to help you do something, and you sort of add to it. So each day you do a little bit more to help you stay in a state of optimism a little bit higher, so that you can go into that test day sort of with the belief like, it's totally possible this worked, and I can handle whatever comes my way, whatever happens.
I love that. I love that. And you're giving that all away for free. So you guys better go get your 2-week weight challenge, okay? Go get it on Kristin's website. Why do you think, from your personal experience in working with clients, it's so difficult for us. I kind of know why, but I just want to hear your expertise opinion. What is that? So, what do you believe, or why do you believe that we have such a huge issue with working on our mindset and transforming the way we perceive and or how we're used to thinking about going through something? For instance, we don't want to hear relax, we don't want to hear those things. Why do you think that is it the emotional aspect or the trauma of it all that we just don't want to hear any of it? We want to hear relax, we don't want to hear positive meditations, we don't want to hear affirmations, we don't want to do anything like that. And for you being someone who's naturally optimistic, that comes very easy for you. But for the rest of us who doesn't have that gift, well, what have you experienced with your clients in situations like that? I should ask that. That was a long-winded question, you guys. So
It's okay, I got you. I think I followed. So, well, with me, I still got pissed off if somebody was like, "Well, why don't you just adopt?" Or "Why don't you just relax?" Or "You can have one of my." I mean, I my content is often talking about that when I speak in public or go on other podcasts that are not infertility related. I am sharing how to support your friend who's going through infertility because so many people do it wrong. So that, even as an optimistic person, pissed me off. And I think it comes from ultimately our thoughts about it. If somebody has 3 children and they're telling you to just adopt, but they never considered it, they would never do it. It wasn't hard for them. Their children are stepladder ages where it's like boom, boom, boom. Hearing advice from somebody like that who had it so easy and who wouldn't even consider it for themselves, you're like, who are you to tell me to do that? If somebody tells you, why don't you just relax? It's like, why do you think I wouldn't have tried that already? We have thoughts about it that ultimately they don't think we're ever going to be a mom or it's never going to work. And we don't want any confirmation of that doubt because that doubt is already inside all of us. And what I have seen with my clients and just in general from life coaching is that most people that I tend to work with have been so successful in life. The lines of what's supposed to happen in society. You go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, you move out of the house, you find a significant other, you date for a certain period of time, you get married, and then you have kids. And this might be the first time that you're not following that trajectory. And so it might be the first time that you're like, oh my gosh, this is hard. This isn't how it was supposed to be. And it's public. Like, if you were trying, and not you, but if anybody was trying to lose weight, most people don't publicly say, hey, I'm trying to lose 40 pounds, to then be able to show up 3 months later and be like, I've gained 5. We don't do a lot of those things publicly because of the fear of rejection and fear of failure.
it's
So,
like that. It almost sounds like it's what I'm hearing or what I heard when you were talking is accountability. And so making things, speaking it out loud to ourselves or to a spouse or anybody kind of like makes us accountable for the situation at hand or how we go through it and how we process it, I guess is what I'm.
mhm.
I love the way you explain that. I really do, because I think that gives us a different way of looking at it and then also validating how we feel, which is why we're here, right? We're here to get validation and inspiration and hope from one another. And so I really like the way you explained that and presented a new way of processing in thinking about how I guess we're just too freaking hard on each other, on ourselves, right? Is that really the thing? Is it really just that we're just all too hard on ourselves and we do just need to relax a little bit, just a little teeny bit. But in a different.
Well, relaxing totally helps. But the challenge is if somebody says, hey, just go relax, they're thinking that you're like making it harder on yourself. And I actually do think we do make it harder for ourselves without the intention of doing so. But we have a belief system that we were raised from when we were very little, that you get married and you have sex and you have a baby. And when that doesn't work, it is challenging us, because for years and years and years, we've had a thought that you do this and you get a baby. And if it doesn't happen, our automatic reaction is, what is wrong with me? And we think we're the only one. And that's why I'm so grateful for just social media and people being brave and speaking up, and your podcast to help get the message out that you're not alone, you're not the only one. And hopefully to hear, even if it's not a doctor saying there's nothing wrong with you, we'll figure this out. And it's hard for us to believe differently, because we've always thought, you have sex, you have a baby, you have sex, you have a baby. And it is possible to actually rewire your brain to think differently. But guess what they don't teach us in school other than how to do taxes? How to change your thoughts and rewire your brain to serve you better, to go after the things you want. Because, even just with what's been going on in the world, my eyes have been open to the ways I was taught and trained that are not how I really want to believe or what I want to think. And I've had to challenge even those too and change those. And that's okay. And it's possible. I now have the tools because of coaching. I know how to do that. That's what I work on with my clients. And what that does is that helps you believe new things. And it also helps you have confidence. And that's amazing, because month after month, the people who get to IVF, how many months of negatives and failures have they gone through? Of course, their confidence is rocked. Of course, they have less hope, because we are taught, if it doesn't work, fix it. Something's got to change. So it's going against what we've all been trained to do and taught to do. And I think that's why it's so hard. And that's also why I am so passionate about helping and speaking about it and sharing a lot of it on social media. Like, you don't have to pay me to get some of that knowledge, because everybody needs to know these things. Infertility is just the catalyst that is teaching you, that is making it come up, bubble up to the surface, that sometimes life doesn't go the way we've planned. And there's different ways to handle it. There's ways to make it better. And if it's not infertility, our friends are going to experience this lesson too, at a different time, at a different juncture, at a different reason. So the skills you actually learn while going through infertility, it sucks. Nobody wants to sign up. I agree. But what everybody learns by going through this and surviving through it, and if you do coaching, heck yeah, even more. But even if you don't, you are learning life skills that will help you through the next milestone and the next challenge and the next time something doesn't go right. And so you're like more resilient, you're more capable to handle hard days. And so that's why I care so much, because I love who I became on the other side of infertility. And I want other people to not look on it as it's such this negative, hard, woe is me experience. I want them to recognize that this is the story to your child. This is a part of your story as a human. And this is a way to it can make you or break you. And I want to help it make you.
Comfort is just comforting for to hear these things and to be reminded of these things. And I think that's why we're here, and that's why Kristin's here, and why she does the work that she does, is because we know we've been there where you are, friend. We know what exactly it's like to feel the way you feel in this very moment, minute, hour, second, day, whatever the week is. It took me 4.5 years to have my son. It's been 10 years altogether. Never have had a natural pregnancy. So I get it. We get it. And I think it's important for us to have these conversations. And I'm going to do my best to continue to bring you guys these kinds of episodes. And then Kristin is available to you guys through Instagram and her website. And if you'd like to consult with her for her services, do that. Do it, because we may be working with a therapist or another person to help us in the counseling aspect, and maybe we don't resonate with them. Maybe they have taken us as far as they can go. We have to realize that also that we have to advocate in our mental health just as much as we do our reproductive organs, because guess what, you guys, you have a child to take care of if and when it happens, however it happens. And that's something that I wish I could go back and do differently, is be more prepared for motherhood emotionally, and so that brings me to your point, one of the points you made in the last statement you were making about just being able to accept where you are. And I think acceptance is the hardest part.
Yeah, acceptance is hard because a lot of us are so driven and we want more. And also, if we're used to achieving, once we hit the milestone, it's like, okay, next. And we don't celebrate. And, society has us celebrating big things like college graduations and marriages and babies, but we don't as like a whole celebrate all the steps in between, like the getting your first apartment or buying your first house or taking a big leap and doing something that you want or hitting a goal other than getting married and having a baby. And so it's really hard when infertility is something you can do all the things, check all the boxes. It might still not work right away. And so it's really hard. It's a real check to the gut on who am I? How much do I love this person right now? Because I truly believe that you do not need one more accolade or achievement or initials after your name or title in your job or raise to be loved. And that's not how most people walk around believing about other people. They're always waiting
Mhm,
for that
mhm.
next thing. Sense of missing what's in my life right now.
Exactly. So glad you said that. So very glad you said that, because I think with us getting help from specialists like yourself, coaches and counselors and therapists, we are now starting to realize that very exact thing, and agree that we do have to come to a place in life that says, well, no matter what happens moving forward, positive and or negative, I will be okay and I can still be happy. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
that's what we all aim
amazing.
for, right?
That's amazing. It's
Mhm.
amazing to be in that place. And I know it takes work to get there. So
Mhm.
kudos to you for taking the work to get there
It's
as you're
hard.
embarking on this change. It is
Yeah.
hard work,
It is
but do you know
so
what else is
hard.
hard? Being really unhappy and being stuck. That's
Mhm.
also hard. So choose your hard. And I can tell with where you're at, you've chosen your hard and you
Mhm.
will be better off because of it. Amazing.
You guys got to watch it on YouTube. Kristen was cheering and everything. She had herself on mute, so we couldn't hear her cheering, but she was doing her dance and her cheer. I love it. So yeah, you guys, I hope that you guys take that all in and took some notes and got exactly what you needed today. Please let me know if you did it, so I can do my job better. But I'm sure you did, because I was inspired by Kristen and her story and the things that she had to offer from an objective standpoint as a coach in the fertility community. And Kristen, so if there's any last word for our friends today, I'll give you back the floor, and then you can also tell us where to find you.
Well, thank you. What I want everybody to know is that if it hasn't happened yet, it's just a matter of time. So it's not a question of if, it's really just a question of when. And that it's okay if you feel like you need a little bit more help. People like me who are coaches or counselors or therapists, whatever, find your team and we can all work together. You had mentioned earlier about your experience, how you wish you had prepared for motherhood a little bit more. And that was something I learned too. Like I was all prepared for like the birth, but not like what happens next to me and my body and all that stuff. And so that's where I feel like I'm the benefit. Like you're not going to go to have a baby without somebody, a doula or a midwife or a doctor with you. And you don't plan that the day it's happening when you're in labor. You plan ahead for it. And so I encourage people to start. The best time to start to get any support was yesterday. And the second best time is tomorrow. You don't have to wait until you're on the floor crying, eating a tub of ice cream to call someone like me for help. There are so many resources out there. If it's not me that you jive with, that's okay. Find the support and the help that you need that fits your needs the best, because there's so many resources out there that were not there in 2015 and 16 when I was going through this. They're available. Take advantage of it. You're worth it. You really are. And your future baby will thank you for it, because you will be a better, more well adjusted mother because of it. And I know that's exactly what you want to be.
I
And
love
then,
that. And where
thank
can we
you.
find you, dear?
Yeah, where you can find me. So my website is coachingwithkd.com. KD are my initials. And that's because I don't want to challenge anybody to spell Dillensnyder. My Instagram is Kristin Dillensnyder, which can be a challenge. So coachingwithkd.com. But I'm very active on Instagram, and I would love for you to follow me over there and say hi, say you heard me on this podcast. That's how you found me, because this is an awesome platform. I'm so glad you're using this resource and listening to Monique's podcast. And yes, if you have a transfer coming up, please sign up for the 2-week wait challenge, or even send it to friends that you know who do have one coming up. It's a great into some of the possibilities of getting support and coaching.
Yes, you guys do that. And I'm going to have Kristin's information in the show details, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite audio platform, so you can tap and go. You don't have to do too many steps. Just tap it. It'll take you to her Instagram or her website, whichever you choose, or both, and get your 2-week weight challenge. Okay, you guys have a list of things to do. I hope you have your pen and pad ready. And then make sure you're also following me on Instagram, Infertility and Me Podcast, for fertility related content, and also sharing updates about the podcast as well, you guys. Thank you, Kristin. I can't wait to meet you when I come back down south. We got coffee at
Sure.
Starbucks or something. Oh
Oh,
my
girl, we've
gosh.
got to do it southern. We're going to have some tea or lemonade on the porch. Let's
Yes, I
do it.
love to see it. Yes,
As
yes,
the
yes, yes.
Yankees we are, let's do it the right way.
Exactly. And thank you, friends, so very, very, very much for tuning in to another episode of Infertility Me podcast.